Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to be here. I come from Dublin in Ireland, but unfortunately when I open my mouth, I sound like the man from the BBC. At least that was how I got introduced when I was dating my wife, and she was working on an optician's on the north side of Dublin. They have a slightly different accent there, but they would always pass the call in saying, "It's the man from the BBC." So I learned quickly that I was a Brit in Ireland. But wonderful event, some great speakers. Thank you so much, guys, for the way in which you've set up the talk. John, I loved your piece, and you've really got a talent there. You know, there's another stage career waiting for you. I thought that was really fantastic. But you've really set me up beautifully in terms of the requirement to understand what's happening at home. And Terry, I want to thank you so much for what you've done in terms of setting us up on the BYOD piece. And I think there's a whole other financial implication actually to the problems of shipping machines. And if you want some details about that, I'm not going to cover it all here, but if you want some models, because we help our BPOs work through the cost. Because if you don't understand the cost, you don't make the change. So delighted also to be doing this with Robert Padron, the Chief Growth Officer from Arise, who's going to come and join me later on. And we'll talk a little bit about it from a customer perspective. It's lovely to be back in Texas, because it was a Texas company, as you heard, that actually got me to Ireland, helped me meet my wife. I joined Dell back in 1990, back in the day when Michael was still wearing glasses. So that gives you some indication of quite how long ago it was. In that era, we had neither a brick nor an employee in Ireland. And when I left in 1999, we were exporting $6 billion a year. And we had about 6,500 employees. So Dell completely transformed the Irish economy and became the poster boy where we advertised for all the other American companies who wanted to come in. So we have much to be grateful to Texas for, and I particularly have much to be grateful for, because otherwise I wouldn't have met my wife, because they brought me to Ireland. So that's how I come to be here. So the US census has shown that 20% of the working population in the US is primarily working from home. Eurostat is showing 25%. I was busy going around selling people on the concept of work at home in January 2020. People were telling me, "You're completely bonkers. Why do I want to be work at home? I've got my people in the call center. I can control it. I can lock it down. I can manage it. I can motivate them." And then March was the day. March was the month. And then it all happened. And then we got to some of them in July and said, "How was it?" And they went, "Oof, crikey, actually a little bit tricky." So I think the three things that have emerged out of that I've seen, three complications. One, how do we manage and motivate the workforce? Then the whole security piece, and then the process piece. It's those last two which actually are full of complication that I'm going to be talking about. So what I want to share with you today, a little bit of a context as to why we should be giving some input, some of the key challenges our customers are facing, how we help them overcome them, and then more importantly, and I hope this will be the valuable bit for you, in our working right the way across the industry, what we've seen as key successes that you can embrace and weaknesses and mistakes you might like to choose to avoid. These are some of the outsourcing companies that we work with around the globe, and I hope those of you who are familiar with the BPO industry will really recognize most of them. The thing that I think that is interesting about this is each of these companies have highly capable, sophisticated technology teams who've all evaluated, how am I going to go about securing my personal devices, my untrusted devices, and in every single case they've decided on our technology. And so I think that's a rare thing in any industry, that you get that degree of breadth of execution. But because we're working with all of them, it has also given us an insight into what's actually happening across the globe. And all of these companies really are operating globally and with large numbers of employees. This gives you a flavor of some of the customers that they have as end user customers who are deploying our technology. And on top of that, we're now starting to deal with some of these companies directly. So, for example, the Dutch government is one of our biggest customers, both directly together with us and then indirectly as well. So this gives you a flavor of the different pieces about us as a whole, our customer base, our global user, and so on. I think the two things that are important, though, are the 5-star rating that we have got on Glassdoor and getting certified as a great place to work. Don't know if you've heard of Kevin Mitnick. He's one of the most celebrated, if that's the correct term, probably not the correct term, hacker out there. But I think one of the key points that he makes in this people, process, and technology piece is that it's that people piece that is the most critical issue. And one of the things I'm noticing from a security point of view is the number of breaches are happening more frequently and getting less reported. There is a greater degree of cover-up going on, and that is creating more and more security-related issues. Our health service in Ireland got hacked right at the beginning part of the COVID pandemic with a very significant ransomware attack. It cost them slightly over 150 million. They were wandering around with Windows 7 endpoints. And I had offered them, I'd written to the guy who ran the operation and suggested, have our technology for free. He did not avail of the offer. These are some of the challenges that are faced by our customers. This whole issue of moving from a call center where you can control everything, you've got technology under control, and then getting it widely dispersed, or as my beautiful little typo there has it, wildly dispersed, which was actually what I witnessed with many of my customers. It's really good to hear how many of you had done things that prepped really well, but my experience with some of my customers was they hadn't done the prep that well. And actually, when it came to going home, it was sort of, grabbing keyboards and monitors and shoving them in taxis and all. Yeah, okay, good, thank you. Because I think one of the things that I saw with this was that the PR that came out afterwards. So one of my great friends runs a whole BPO, and he had thousands of agents, and it was a complete disaster zone. And then I saw this wonderful PR statement that said, oh, it was all absolutely beautifully seamless. And I'm thinking, you lying toad. Wasn't like that at all. So then the other issue, and again, many of you have touched on it, workforce turnover transition. Most of you have very respectable level attrition rates, even though they're significant and things you're really trying to struggle with. My customers are dealing with typically 8% per calendar month. So if you've got 100,000 employees, you're recruiting 100,000 people a year. And you're managing the logistics of trying to ship machines. But the best bit that I like, and John, you gave that beautiful little graph like that shows how many people work through, the recruitment piece. Just like you, my guys recruit 150 people to get 100 in production. But what do? They ship 50 machines to people who will never work for them. Isn't that a glorious use of our resources for the planet? What a fantastic idea. Let's just pour the cash down the toilet, and actually we recover it because we're not using so much on real estate. And so we'll pretend there isn't a problem and write it down as cost of doing business. So those are some of the challenges my guys are facing. Then this whole business of how do you manage the devices? How do you patch? How do you update? How do you monitor? The thing that John was talking about. But how do you get right software, right place, right level? This criticality of security, people have got VDIs, all sorts of bits and pieces. Yeah, but if I've got keyloggers or screen scrapers on your endpoint, I don't care what you've got, I can steal it. This whole speed to green, how do you ramp quickly? So how do we help our customers meet those challenges? So let me just start with a quick customer example. The Dutch government, I've touched on them earlier. Back in 2021, they were trying to set up a COVID-19 hotline, and they needed 4,000 agents up and running in 4 weeks. The problem was that the product lead time was 8 weeks. And indeed, you could see some of the length of times that people are talking about in terms of how long it's taking them to get technology ready. So in order to achieve that, they use BYOPC, and this is in a very important information, security, healthcare, you're using a lot of health information. But they managed to achieve that, and on foot of that success, they won similar contracts with the French and German government. So that particular outsourced partner of ours is one of the heaviest users of our technology, and it really cemented relations in Europe between them and their government partners. So one of the key aspects about making this work really efficiently, and indeed, I'm doing a session with Richard Laub, Marriott, on security and after this session and after the break, and we'll dig into some of this stuff a bit more. And it was one of the great questions Richard was doing in his deck that I saw, which is like, okay, so how do we do this? Are we checking the agent setup prior to recruitment and during recruitment? So best in class, do this during the recruitment phase, not least because it's actually telling you something about the agent's capacity to do things right, to patch their windows. And what we're doing is testing all of it, the device, the windows, the state, the bandwidth, etc. And then, as you can vaguely see from those blue links over there, we're giving them information to help the agent prep the machine so that by the time you finish recruitment, you haven't got this gulf between recruitment and getting operational. This gives you a sort of flavor of what we offer. So we offer the secure remote worker, which locks down personal machines, but we also lock down corporate machines. So there are many of our customers who have the kind of thin client environment, and we're supplying the lockdown capacity and the monitoring capacity for that kind of environment. It's controlled then from a management platform that can be either in the cloud or in our customer's cloud. And through these controls, people are then accessing the corporate solutions, and whether that's through a VDI or whether it's direct into the web-based applications. So that's kind of how our technology functions and something of how we enable it. So security is critical for our customers. PCI compliance, HIPAA compliance, GDPR compliance. And as I've alluded to earlier, the level of breaching is becoming more and more significant now. So making sure that you've got the proper controls in place is becoming more and more important. And I think, I had one BPO came to me recently who had been breached with a significant US financial services organization. That organization has said, you've got to do this as a minimum in order to continue with our customer. And I was going, no, but don't be doing that. Do all of this and fix this kind of stuff because you're still open. But they wouldn't pay the money in order to make it secure. So that's the kind of potential issue that we are creating in this, by not focusing on some of this point and looking at the endpoint, which is obviously the key access area. So then how do we help customers really manage that distributed environment? So I've talked a little bit about the patching piece of it and controlling when you do those, because you don't want the agent suddenly mid-call receiving a huge, great update. You want to be able to specify when they're going to do that. You want to be able to push software packages. If you're moving an agent from one program to another, you want to make sure they've got the right applications at the right point. So that's two ways. Then thirdly is enabling agents to work on multiple environments. So enabling them to work on one customer in the morning and then a different customer in the afternoon. And that's particularly if you're in the gigs, the X kind of environment, which we have quite a lot of people who operate in that environment, that's a critical component. This capacity to remove all the applications off an agent's machine when it's coming to the end of their employment. And then the very thing, John, you've been talking about, we were getting a lot of feedback from our customers that that's exactly what they were trying to achieve. What is actually happening is not just a one-time thing. How do I monitor it in real time and be able to run reports, whether you're doing that out of PowerShell or pushing it into some other database, so that you can see what's happening in terms of download, upload, jitter, latency, and so on, so that you can then drive alerts out to the agent to highlight the problem in terms of their call quality, but also notify the IT team. And then provide the broader scale reporting that is necessary, and then analyze something around your ISP performance, and particularly because our guys are so geographically spread, they've got it in multiple different geos around the world. So you can also then choose to flip agents from one place to another where you're getting better performance. So then I now want to finally come on to some of the learnings that I think have come out from our interaction over the last couple of years of working with these organizations and some of the things that I've seen. I think the first thing, many of the organizations I've been working with have tended to see the move to work from home as an IT project, a complex of technology execution. But it's not. It's actually a massive paradigm shift. It's a major change project. And those who have done it well have executed in that. And I have some fabulous stuff about change projects, having been involved in it. So if anybody's interested in a bunch of tools and approaches to that, come and talk to me. I've got, which has nothing to do with all of this, but it's both fun and interesting. But one of the keys to having an effective change management project is you've got to have the buy-in of senior leadership. So, now in order for the senior leadership to get bought in, there's got to be a significant financial impact, which is where a lot of the points, and Terry was touching on many of them really well, really articulately, in terms of where that piece is. But most people, so I go to companies, go, okay, tell me what your device recovery rate is. And this is what I get. Oh, we do quite well. Oh, okay, so that means you actually just don't know. Typically, I've seen as bad as 40%. I've rarely seen better than 80, 85%. The best in class are achieving 80, 85. They're very rare. Most of them are stuck around the 60%. And bear in mind, and then you've got the attrition rate between recruitment and production. So, and by the way, most people go, oh, there's that bit, and there's the actual cost of the device versus not. Those are two of the smaller components of it. You actually, when you start working through the logistics, how much am I paying FedEx? They're back. How much am I paying? Because I've actually got to have, and in fact, this gentleman was talking about it when he was looking at, I've got to have this much around in order to service this many agents. So, and again, I've got a spreadsheet, which you're more than welcome to have, which can work out some of the bits and pieces connected to that. So so the point about all of that was, leadership only move when they understand the cash implication. So the key is get them to understand the cash implication, then they'll endorse it, then they'll support it, and then you get this, which is the integration of talent acquisition, operations, and IT. Too often I'm talking to IT in isolation. But if you want to make real progress, it's when you join these three up and then suddenly you get an improvement in the whole execution. And it all begins at the front end in terms of recruitment, and I'll touch a little bit more on that in a second. I think the other thing is people feel that actually if I'm going to improve security, I'm going to improve process, the cost is going to be less good agent experience. But I want to suggest to you that the inverse is actually true. That actually when you're doing something that works really well, that's a really good process, that's operating really well, you can actually supply a better agent experience because the agent can get going rapidly. And when I started a company, if there's one thing I want, I just like to get going. And if the one thing that fiddles me off quite substantially, it's, we'll send you out the tech. Michelle and I were at a conference in Las Vegas, and there was a guy from a bank, and let's protect their anonymity. And he was telling me it was taking, he announced in the room, it was taking 60 days to get the technology to his agent, and was that normal? I was thinking, feck no. That is completely fucking bonkers. In what planet are you thinking that makes any sense? But why are you even asking the question, But it gives an indication of what's kind of out there. So the recruitment period, really important, and getting that validation during recruitment, it provides you information about the aspect of the agent. Integrating, where possible, the validation tool results into your talent acquisition. So our best-in-class customers have that integrated into the talent acquisition system so that the HR people can see it immediately. But you can also supply very good sort of PowerShell-based reporting into it. The whole clarity of the job ads and technology. And I've had the number of times that we sit down and you go, no, BYOD doesn't work for us. Why is that? We can't find anybody. Really? That's weird, because I've got 70,000 people who are operating with BYOD. How come you can't find anybody? And then you go look at their job ad and you go, well, feck. If I was looking at that job ad, I'd go, yeah, sure, ship me a sheet. You know, you are making, in other words, you don't make your expectations clear, you're going to get what you ask for. So that whole, how are you setting that out? What is your technology? How's the process? And then having a clear decision tree for optimizing the flow through. So if you find somebody with a particular spec that could be upgraded, what are you going to do about that? Do you want to upgrade it? Is that a quicker way? Is that a route forward? Are you going to ship a machine? What's your decision about shipping a machine? But if you think that through carefully, then you can operate it well. The other significant area of opportunity, and there may be certain situations where, no, I just cannot do BYOD for reasons X, Y, Z. But this is where perhaps the opportunity is to use an agent's machine, because 90% of the time they're doing their recruitment piece on a machine of some description, because who wants to do everything on a fucking, like, you know, phone? So you can then use that BYOD actually to get them right up and running and operational and really speed up the process and then get them trained. And so then you're improving that agent experience and getting it through more quickly. And then you will be able to improve that attrition rate between recruitment and production. And I've had some guys who've really done a super job. It's very rare that you get people who do this when they buy your technology. Mostly they go, stick it in and come back and go, yeah, it's all okay. But this company put it in and they measured all of these different things, you know, attrition rate through production, day one no-shows, blah, 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 all the way through, before using us, and then after using us. And again, if you want a copy of that, let me know, blah, blah, blah. But it was really interesting to see, you know, exactly what the stats are. So that's another key piece. The other thing is having a really clear, well thought through end-to-end process. This is a sort of HR process map that we've developed in conjunction with many of the customers that we've been working with, and because they're trying to think, how do we do this? How do we optimize it? And, you know, there may be different variations and components that you want to use or approach, but the first phase is they're all about assessing the user device suitability. Secondly is planning that kind of launch party and training piece, and then the pre-day one training. So I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but it's putting some kind of clear process map so the agent is being guided through it. So, look, it may be I've gone relatively rapidly, but you know, we're not so big a group of people that there isn't going to be the opportunity for interaction if you like, and we'll have a bit of space for questions as well. So my conclusion then of what I've tried to share with you, secure BYOD can be cost and operationally transformative. Work from home is a major change management project that needs really being thought through very carefully. And leadership and operational integration is key to making that happen. The whole security aspect is absolutely critical, and these threats are growing. But we can have a positive agent and operational impact by adopting this approach. So thank you very much for that piece of it. Thank you for your attention. I wanted to just invite Robert, and I wanted to perhaps ask him a couple of questions, and then we'll throw it open to the floor. So Robert, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Robert Padron. I lead sales and marketing at Arise Virtual Solutions, a fellow advocate for folks working in the gig economy, as well as Terry. So thanks, Terry, for the commentary and the power of the gig economy and how it can help unlock value for your organizations. But Andrew, I thought I liked you, but now I feckin' love you, bro. I'm taking that away from it. I'm not going to use it with my kids, but I feel like I just learned a new word today. I'm super supportive of it. But previous to my role, I spent 10 years leading operations for our company and then worked for a major BPO for about 13 years. I was born with a headset on my head, and I really was because my mother worked in a call center. And I was born in that call center. True story. Ask me about it later. So I may very well have had the headset on my head when she pushed me out. But important note, I understand the business. I know it well. And it's important to have great partnerships with firms like ThinScale, because having been an agent, the agent experience is super important. So I appreciate your commentary on that.
Brilliant. So Rob, you have decided primarily to operate a BYOD model. What was your thinking and why are you doing that? What's made you choose that?
Yeah, so Arise was born digitally native in 1997. So we have always been work from home and always been BYOD. So the thought of that is like, well, that's impossible. Well, it's actually possible. We actually believe in trust in people, assume positive intent that they're going to do good work, and then build the tools around it. So we actually built our own product because ThinScale wasn't around back then. We called it the Arise Secure Desktop, and it met all of the PCI, HIPAA, GDPR, SOC 1, SOC 2 type requirements, and we felt really good about that product. But we're always attempting to evolve and identify how we can grow and scale our business, and most importantly, think about the employee experience and the agent experience. Because what we spend a lot of time doing is how can we evolve and improve the experience that agents have on the Arise platform. So we have clearly thought out journey maps. And actually what we found was there was an opportunity for us to improve the experience that the Arise Secure Desktop offered to agents as they were onboarding onto the platform and in the classroom environment. So we began our own internal research and analysis, and at the same point began to assess vendors in the market that were doing this work. And as a byproduct of doing that analysis, we identified ThinScale, and the primary selection point, it wasn't about BYOD, remember, we had all the BYOD stuff. It was about a partner that could quickly get to speed to proficiency around what we were attempting to accomplish from an agent experience perspective faster than even our internal development teams could do it. So we decided to partner with ThinScale, and what we have found in that, we've saved over $1 million over the duration of our relationship, specifically tied to attrition less than 60 days on the platform because the user experience has improved and evolved from our baseline results. But outside of that, the development costs that we were continuing to put in place on our own product. So a combination of those two things have more than paid for the investment we have in place with ThinScale today.
Very good. Okay, you've almost answered my second question, but is there any other aspect of our partnership relationship that has, talk to us about that?
Yeah, listen, what we look at in partners, and there's several here, Amplify is one of our partners, Centrical is one of our partners. What we look for is we look for thought leadership, and we look for folks who actually believe in that there are people in this world who want to change the way the world works and want for work to revolve around life versus the other way around. And so many products in this space have been developed for traditional employee models. But when we find partners like a ThinScale who understand the nuances of individuals working in the gig economy and how they can help us to improve that experience for those workers, that's really one of the things we appreciate most about our partners like ThinScale, to really drive that conversation forward and be an evangelist for the 79 million people that choose to work that way.
Perfect. So, guys, let me throw it open rather than me sitting here asking him questions. Do you have any questions either for myself or for Robert? Sorry. Yes, John.
Yeah, you've been referencing me the whole time.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've been a proponent of BYOD. I've tried to make the pitch that that's the route we need to go a few times.
Yep.
There's always been a couple of holes.
Yep.
One of my IT friends have always talked about the complexity of managing multiple solutions.
Yep. Yep.
I think the biggest thing is actually kind of a human resources issue where it's viewed as it's either an equality or discriminatory practice type issue than the challenge back to me that our lowest paid job essentially that we're offering.
Yep.
Part of their requirement to
Yeah.
And so we're denying an equal chance for people to get that job. And that's been the biggest resistance, I think, and I don't know if that's something that others that you've encountered, and how do you overcome it?
I think there are always legal and HR places that people go. I've heard probably 30 or 40 variations on that particular theme. Generally speaking, its root is in we don't do it that way. This is a change. This is something new. Can I come up with a reason why this can't work? The Workers' Council won't allow it in Germany. Well, that's not true, because I was on with the legal director for the Workers' Council for several of the big technology companies. No problem. It's back to I've got this fabulous list of reasons why I shouldn't change. And I'll send you the list. Because once you stick them out there in the open, it's like, oh, we tried that in Michelle had one of them up there. We tried that in 1960, it didn't work. I was in a meeting once where somebody said, in 1142 at the Synod of Rathbrassel. And I thought, my God, we're not going back 900 years, are we? We've dealt with lots of different HR issues. I don't think that should be insuperable. And there are too many other healthcare operators who have got over it. So let's get into the detail of that, and let's understand what the problem is and see if we can help alleviate it.
I'm also happy we have 2 specific use cases that might tie directly to your HR leaders' concerns on that model that we've been able to help customers break. So if you need conversation or support on that, happy to have an offline conversation about it.
Any other queries, questions? No.
Feckin' great.